You are trespassing on my property.
What?
You are flying your drone over my property, and I demand that you land it now, or I will shoot it down.
Where's your house?
I live 2 miles that way.
But my drone is over here.
I don't care where your drone is now. It was flying over my property and was infringing upon my constitutional rights. Land it, or I'll shoot it down.
Sir, I wasn't... Wait. How did you find me?
You know, this country's not been the same since that Obama got elected into office. Drones are everywhere, infringing upon people's rights, disturbing the peace, making everybody's lives a living hell. And I tell you what, I'm going to start shooting them down.
Can I help you with something?
Look, man, just give me your drone and all this in your backpack, and nobody needs to get hurt. Understand?
Don't worry, I got this under control. You just gotta get the gun up, the gun belt. Come on, this is the moment. But wait, calculate this. Come on, just flip the button off. Just 1, 2, 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ready? Let's go. Come on, just come on. You just gotta.
All right. Look, I'll give you my stuff, but just tell me, how did you find me?
Remote ID, of course.
It's the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Constitution, America's counting on you.
What's up? It's Chris, the Drone Geek, and I am back from my holiday vacation, and I am ready to start 2021, and boy, is it starting with a... Oh, wait, what's that? Oh, you like my sweatshirt? Thanks, yeah. I got it from Tie Dot and Embroidery. They do some awesome stuff over there, and they were able to take my logo, my branding for Drone Geek Productions, and combine it with some of my work. You can see here they placed a photo that I took with my drone as sort of the overlay of the logo. They did this with a digital transfer, and you know, they can do it for you too, whether it's drone related or not. Make sure you check out Tie Dot and Embroidery. I've linked their website and their Facebook profile in the video description down below. Just give them a shout and they'll be able to hook you up with just about anything you could ask for, and they even do shipping. So if you live in the lower 48 states, Tie Dot and Embroidery can hook you up. Remember to check out their profile and their website in the description below. All right, as I was saying, we are starting 2021 off with a bang. So on December 28th of 2020, yes, that terrible, awful, no good, very bad year that we just wrapped up, the FAA announced a new final rule for remote ID, as well as a few other factors that come with flying a drone. Some of those things were good, some of those things were bad, and some of those things are still up for debate. So let's jump right into it with the remote ID ruling. If you've been flying drones for any length of time, you know that remote ID has been a hot button issue for years. And back in 2020, I attended a rally in Washington, D.C. around the FAA headquarters protesting the implementation of remote ID, which at the time would have required that a pilot or an operator of a drone broadcast their remote identification number or call tag or call sign, whatever you want to call it, through a Wi-Fi internet connection. That would mean that to fly a drone legally under the FAA's regulations, you would need to have an internet connection, which eliminated a lot of people from flying because not everybody can afford an internet connection for when they go to fly a drone, and some people just don't have access to one. That's just the bottom line. You go to a place that's more remote and there's no chance for any kind of an internet signal, which again just eliminates A, a lot of people from flying, and B, a lot of places that you could potentially want to fly your drone at. Basically, they just wanted to make it totally inflexible to fly a drone, which would have been super inconvenient to both the hobbyist and the commercial pilot. Essentially, no internet equals no flying, which equals no fun. Now, the proposal has been reworked. In this instance of the remote ID, there have been a few things added to it, but one of the big takeaways was the requirement for the remote ID to take place over an internet connection. Now, it doesn't get into what type of a signal needs to be sent out with that remote ID number or call tag or whatever you want to call it, but one thing was made very clear, that you don't need to do it through the internet. So it's going to be interesting to see how drone manufacturers and people that build their own drones are able to comply with this new rule, because now you have a little bit more flexibility with how your drone broadcasts it. At least that's how it seems right now. The proposal that we spoke out against in 2020 has been reworked. And it seems, again, there's not been a lot of detail given on this, that you won't need an internet connection to broadcast your remote ID signal. Whether that means you can use Bluetooth or some sort of independent Wi-Fi from your drone, or just another RC signal or radio signal that comes from your drone that can be picked up, that has yet to be determined or stated from the FAA. But we know at this point, you do not specifically need an internet connection to broadcast your remote ID, and the FAA has not put out an official statement as to what type of a signal needs to be broadcast from that drone containing that information to stay in compliance. As of right now, and this remains consistent with the problems that we had back in 2020 with the initial proposal for remote ID, our friends in the FPV and homemade drone segments of our community are going to face the biggest challenges with this new rule. They will be solely responsible for not only retrofitting their old drones with technology that brings them up to compliance, but any drones they build in the future must also meet that level of compliance, and that takes place in 2023. So they have a 2-year grace period here to get everything figured out, but the bottom line is that's a lot of pressure, and I see a lot of people that fly FPV and homemade drones potentially dropping out of the community because it's just not going to be logistically feasible for them to stay in if they can't A, afford the technology to bring their drone into compliance, or B, can't figure out how to meet that compliance mark with the FAA. But that's not to say those of us that fly out of the box drones aren't going to face a similar struggle. Look, at this point, none of the major drone manufacturers, that includes DJI, Autel, Skydio, none of them have come out with any official statement as to how they're going to take the drones they've already manufactured and sold and bring them up to compliance with the FAA's new remote ID regulation. There has been absolutely nothing, just crickets at this point. So let's say DJI says, hey, tough luck, kid. You know, you bought your Mavic 2 Pro just a year ago, but at this point, in 2023, we won't be retrofitting the Mavic 2 Pro with any kind of firmware or making available any kind of hardware retrofit that you can apply to it that will bring it into compliance. If that happens, you are going to see a massive drop off in the drone community, because while there are plenty of us that take it very seriously and plan on sticking around even through this tough time, there are a lot of people that went out and bought the Mavic Mini, the Mavic Mini 2, and they're just sort of fun hobbyist drones. They just fly for fun. If you make this more complicated than it needs to be, and you can't help the people that have already bought your hardware, those entry-level drones, you're gonna see a lot of them drop off because they're not gonna wanna spend the money to retrofit it, and they're not going to necessarily want to keep in compliance all the time when they fly. And with the threat of potentially facing legal action should they go outside of the FAA's regulations, that's going to discourage them from doing anything they shouldn't be. Now, the good news, at least for people that own DJI drones, I don't know about Autel or Skydio, but DJI does have a section in their app, at least the DJI Go 4 app and the DJI Go Fly app, that you can see where there's a spot to enter or turn on a remote ID feature. Now, does that mean that the drone that you have from DJI will be capable of broadcasting a remote ID as it stands right now? No, there's no guarantee that there will be any kind of firmware update that can allow your drone to come into compliance. So there may be a need for a hardware retrofit if that's made available. If not, be prepared to buy a new drone, whether that's a newer version of a model that you already have, like they make a Mavic 2 Pro version 2 that now has remote ID capabilities, or the Phantom 4 version 3 that now has remote ID capabilities. Whatever the case may be prepared. If there's no firmware solution and there's no hardware retrofit that will be made available, that means you will have to buy a new drone that can stay compliant with the FAA's regulations. Now, on that same token, drones that are 249 grams or less That means the Mavic Mini and the Mavic Mini 2 aren't subject to these same rules. So the FAA isn't holding drones smaller or lighter than 250 grams to the same standards. So the Mavic Mini and the Mavic Mini 2 may be the new standard for creating drones for consumers. You may see more smaller drones coming out because DJI, Autel, and Skydio don't want to have to comply with the FAA's new regulations on every single drone that they manufacture. Now, you might be sitting there going, I refuse it. I won't be registering my drones and I won't be broadcasting my remote ID, and I'm gonna bring my gun when I fly. And that's cool. You don't necessarily need to broadcast your remote ID to fly. The alternative to flying within compliance with that remote ID that the FAA has set in place is to fly in an FAA recognized identification area. Yeah, you're gonna be flying in an open field, probably far away from any interesting landscapes or structures, and you're probably gonna be heavily monitored as to how far your drone will go. There will probably be some sort of hardware or some sort of physical personnel presence that will be monitoring how you fly your drone. A, keeping it in line of sight, B, where you're flying it within that area, and C, how safely and how fast you're flying your drone. Essentially, you're gonna have your hand held the entire time you're flying in these designated areas. So to this point, I've framed this to be pretty unattractive. And the fact of the matter is, I agree with the notion that this sucks. Remote ID is going to restrict our flying capabilities a lot, and it's gonna take some getting used to, and I'm sure that there will be some adjustments made by the FAA, not necessarily in our favor, but there is the potential for them to ease up just a little bit on how and where remote ID will be required. Look, we've all broken rules before. That's just the bottom line. Whether it's your first day with the drone, you send it up in the air as far as it'll go, and you don't know the rules about airspace, or if you're knowingly breaking the rules. We've all done it before, and if you say you haven't, I'm gonna call you a liar. But the fact of the matter is, most of us try to stay in compliance with the FAA regulations. I know I do everything I can to make sure that I'm playing by the rules, and it really just chaps my ass when I watch somebody online doing something that is blatantly against the rules, and they know it's against the rules, and they sort of brag about it. That just drives me insane. I've been kicked out of Facebook groups for drone policing, but the bottom line is, don't let people shame you for being a sort of drone police officer. We need to hold each other accountable until these rules are in place, because otherwise even further regulation could be placed upon us, which means that it gets even harder to fly. On that note, referencing the bit that I did at the beginning of this video, it is a little bit concerning that remote ID could be accessed by just about anybody, and it has yet to be specified who will have access to these remote ID signals. Will it be the general public, in which case I see a huge security risk when it comes to flying my drone, because if somebody doesn't like that I'm flying my drone, or if somebody just wishes me harm and they're able to get in, see where I'm at, know that it's me, and then come and inflict physical harm on me or steal my drone or any other valuables I might have with me, that opens the door for a lot of those same occurrences happening on a widespread level. I would hope, and I really truly believe this is how it's going to be, that the remote ID system will not be accessible to the general public, that the only people that will have access to it will be local, state, and federal law enforcement, whether that's the FAA, the FBI, the state police, the local police, whatever the case may be. I hope that those are the only entities that have access to that system. It makes sense, it keeps everybody safe. That's the drone pilot, as well as people that might confront the drone pilot. I know some of you guys are cowboys out there, maybe packing a little bit of heat while you're flying your drone. We just gotta make sure that everybody's safe. We don't put anybody in a compromising position. At this point, here's my take on all of the changes coming to the drone community. I feel that remote ID still presents some huge hurdles that our friends in the FPV and homemade drone communities especially are going to have to jump if they want to continue flying the way that they do. At the same time, those of us that fly out of the box drones will also face those same problems if our manufacturer of choice isn't able to help us with a firmware or hardware retrofit solution that allows the drones to then broadcast the remote ID that is required by the FAA. As I've stated already, DJI, Autel, and Skydio have made no official announcements on how they intend to to help people that have their current drones, the ones they've already manufactured, come into compliance with these new regulations that are set to take hold in 2023. They have 2 years to get it figured out, so I'm not in any hurry at this point, but I would like to know whether I'm going to have to retrofit my drone with firmware or hardware, or if I'm gonna have to start saving money to buy a new drone completely when 2023 comes around. Overall, remote ID is something that needed to happen. We had way too many Mavics out there that were breaking the rules and just blatantly not flying their drone in a manner that is appropriate as deemed by the FAA. It sucked because all it did was ruin the hobby and the profession for the rest of us. However, I do recognize that there are some problems with remote ID that will take responsible pilots out of the game completely if they're not able to come up with a solution. Some of those pilots face that completely on their own. Others will be assisted by their manufacturer of choice, whether that's DJI, Autel, or Skydio. But what do you think of all these changes? What do you like? What do you dislike? What did I get wrong, or what could I have elaborated on just a little bit better? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button down below. And if you really like this video and you want to stay up to date with all of the content on my channel, hit that subscribe button. We are still on the quest to 1,000 subscribers. That giveaway helped us attract a lot more people to the Drone Geek Army, and I've never been happier to say welcome aboard to the people that hadn't been following me up until that Mini 2 giveaway. So again, welcome, and I hope you stick around for plenty more content just like this. Also, we're gonna be doing more giveaways in the future, okay? If you've already subscribed to my channel, do me a favor, tell 2 friends that you know would love my channel and the content on it to come here, hit that subscribe button, and then tell them to do the same. Tell them to tell 2 friends, who will 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 tell, and we will be there in absolutely no time. We're at 7:35 as of the recording of this video. We don't have that far to go. We gotta get to 1,000 subscribers. Before I wrap this video up completely, it is time for our subscriber shout out. This subscriber shout out goes to Shoot, Edit, and Repeat, my friend Jordan Handworker. Now, Jordan has some awesome work on his Instagram channel. I'm gonna put his link to his Instagram profile in the description below. Make sure you check that out, but also make sure you go to his YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. He is an awesome photographer, one of the best that I know, and I definitely encourage you to go take a look at his work. He does some awesome stuff with cameras, with video equipment, and he also puts together some awesome highlight reels himself. Make sure you go and check his channel out. He's got lots of great product reviews. He's got lots of great informational content. Jordan Handworker is one of the best in the industry. You better believe it. Check him out, Shoot, Edit, Repeat on YouTube. That link will also be in the description below. Until next time, I'm Chris, the Drone Geek, and I am out of here.
In the good, out with the bad. Gotta get my Smith & Wesson ready. Come on, you're gonna be sorry when I'm through with you. Come on.